Thank you. Good evening, councillors. Good evening, members of the public, watching on evening, and welcome to Torridge District Council's annual meeting. So I could start with apologies, please.
Apologies received from Councillor Andrews, Councillor Craigie and Councillor Piper.
Okay, thanks. So the first item of business is the election of chair of council. So if I could have the nominations, please. Councillor Branton.
I'd like to propose Councillor Doug Smith as chair for three good reasons. One is that he's experienced chairing and he's a very capable individual, so I understand. Well, we know that from his work here. So, and the other reason is he's from Torrington, and I'm very sensitive to Councillor Newton's remarks in the past that this place is a bit of eccentric. I do sensitive occasionally, but and I think we should be spreading the post out amongst the rest of the community in terms of Torridge. And brings me on to the third point, really, and that is it is an honour and a privilege to be chair of Torridge. I've done that job, and I do think it was always an annual change. I know during COVID I did 2 terms, it was a punishment and a half, but never mind. But I think we should try to revert back to having it as an annual new chair. That's the reason for that.
Sorry, Councillor James, Councillor Elliott,
Councillor Doug Bushby, chair, doing an excellent job. I can't remember being early, but that's a point of discussion or not. So I'd like to propose Doug Bushby as the chair for the chair. Thank you. I'll take him. Do the words overnight.
Councillor Newton, you're at your.
Question is the change annually in the constitution? Is it a requirement of the constitution?
No, hopefully a point standard.
You might know a bit better.
Are there any other nominations? Councillor Cotton.
I like second, Councillor Smith.
Any other nominations before we go to the vote? Okay. So if I could take, if you could raise your hands, those wishing to elect Councillor Bushby first, as he received second, and then we'll go to Councillor Smith. So we'll do both at the same time.
The first one to be seconded was Councillor Bushby.
So if you could raise your hands for Councillor Bushby. And if you could, those raise your hands for Councillor Smith.
Okay, Steve, that's Councillor Bushby received 18 votes, Councillor Smith 15.
I, Doug Bushby, having been elected to the office of Chair of Council of Torridge District Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
duly signed. And thank you everyone for your confidence in me. Let's hope we have another really successful year. Thank you. Okay, item 3 on the agenda is to elect the vice chair of council. Mr. Thomas?
Well, I'd like to nominate councillor Doug Smith for the reasons mentioned previously.
I'll second that. Okay. Any other nominations? Okay, so show of hands in support of councillor Smith, please.
That's 32 for and 1 abstention.
I, Doug Smith, having been elected to the office of Vice Chair of Council of Torres District Council, declare that I take the office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. That was signed today.
Okay, item 4 on the agenda, contributions. We have no public speakers. Item 5, consider correspondence put forward by the chair. We'll move on to item 6, election of the leader of the council. Councillor Ness.
Chair, could I nominate councillor Ken James to continue as our leader? Councillor James works exceedingly hard. He has a vast amount of corporate knowledge in this, and at a time when the council has a huge workload on its hands, and continuity is essential at this time. Is also, you can say, better the devil you know than the one you don't. However, continuity, very important. Midterm, I think and believe strongly that we should stay with somebody who knows his job and works well with officers and is guiding things well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dart.
Like to second, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay, so show of hands in support of councillor James as leader, please. Hand up, okay? No, yourself? Yourself.
You don't want it.
And against? Abstentions?
Thank you, Chair. That's 31 for and 2 abstentions.
That's it.
I didn't put my hand up, I was a bit taken back by the place I was saying. It must be because it's the evening event. Thank you very much for the support. We are in a middle of the programme, an awful lot. Ultimately, probably have the time to do it college. And I really hope I can see all these projects through. As I raised with the other one, I have some concerns, but it's better to have concerns than to have some not bringing those concerns to you all. Thank you very much for enabling me. We've obviously got our own projects. We've got LGR, which I'm sure is going to be more than nightmare than we ever imagined. So I think working together, we can deliver for our community. And that will be essential if the college does disappear as the district. The people will still be here, the responsibility to the community will still be here. And it's for us to make sure that we put things in place that deliver those things, and not, get left in the knowledge side. Okay, thank you very much.
Item 7 is election of the deputy leader of the council. Councillor James. So, who is it?
That I propose, Hobson carries on with, and it seems to be a perfect foil. I know she probably is a better leader than I am, but.
Here, here.
So that's right. Yeah, and we do work together well. Whilst you put up with me on Northern Road, rather with her. Thank you.
Thank you, I'd like to second that one.
It's proposed and seconded. Councillor Hobson, step leader, all in favour, please show. Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you for your confidence in me. Yes, we do work well together. No, I won't make that obvious comment. There are times we disagree, which I think is healthy, because we challenge one another. And then it's, we come to obviously either a compromise or the best decisions for the council. So I'm honoured to serve you all again, I think, for another 12 months. I do enjoy it. And, I hope I bring my contributions to working this council in a positive way. Thank you.
Correct. On to item 8 on your agenda, the Tolbridge Corporate Peer Progress Report, pages 4 to 7 on your agenda.
Thank you, Chair. It's probably worth just outlining first of all, this is on the agenda before the elections of chairs, vice chairs, etc. And it's largely because the item just after the recommendations from the Member Development Working Group could have implications on those appointments. And those recommendations follow on from the peer review team done last year and this year. So it's worthwhile having that first just to give some indication of why there are changes. So obviously the peer team came and did a rather detailed exercise in the early part of 2024. Obviously all members had the opportunity to be involved in different stages of that review, and following that they produced recommendations which we transferred into an action plan. That action plan was brought to full council last summer. During the course between last summer and the beginning of 2025, we reported back to full council various items of progress. A significant part of that was the establishment of a working group made up of the group leaders to look at that action plan, to oversee the action plan. What's happened since then? So ordinarily, the Local Government Association, a year after the main review has taken place, come back and review progress against the recommendations that were made. So they did that in April of this year, and the came as a supplement to your. Pleasing to say that they recognise the level of work the council's progressed, standing at 91%. Given reorganisation and amount of work the council already outlined by the leader just a short while ago, and significant progress made across nearly all the areas that suggested, with one exception around financial sustainability. But despite that, the team do recognise that we have sound financial management in place. So that said, so the report's attached there. recommendation is to note the report, although I believe that the leader might want to say a few words before we move on.
Thank you, Chief Exec. But very briefly, I think the report is good. They were very positive towards the council. Joe, if I could just pick up on the one thing that Chief Exec said about, they queried the financial sustainability. And it was rather interesting because at the one hand, we had the government saying you must use all your reserves before you, and you do have to use all your reserves before you can declare a 114, which is what a lot of councils are having to do. And on the other hand, they were saying, you know, what are you doing to actually bring more income in? And as we know, some councils have gone quite mad and invested money and lost masses of amounts of money. We've been slightly more due diligent in what we've done, and we're more stable because of it. But it doesn't stop us looking at income generation in the future. And I would just like to thank Councillor Newton, who played a major part in it, and was a great asset in the work he did towards it. So thank you.
So, sorry. Councillor Dodd?
Can I just comment that I really am not in favour of the this senior leadership team? In terms of,
That's the next agenda item.
oh, is it?
Yeah. Okay, that's just for noting that, so we don't need to actually vote on that. So we'll move on then to item 9, Member Development Working Group, recommendations following Local Government Association peer review, pages 8-21.
Thank you, Chair. So as mentioned in the previous report, a member development working group was recommended and established following a full council meeting last July. So that group was made up of all the group leaders, and right up until April this year included Councillor Newton, who was replaced by more recently by Councillor Whitaker. So as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of recommendations, a number of meetings being had with and within that group. So Chair, I was intended to do, with your permission, rather than going through the whole report and taking questions and just go through each of the sections. I was got a question on one of the to the leadership team. With that, then move to that particular recommendation, if you're happy with that.
Yeah. Thank you.
In respect to the leadership team meetings, when the peer review team met, they were slightly bemused and confused the role of leadership team because of its position sat in our diagram of committees and meetings of the council. It was sat just below full council and seemingly had a much wider remit and element of control and decision making than it actually does. They're also confused in terms of it being a strategic leadership team when all members of the council were invited to attend. But more recently, not many members were attending that meeting, and there wasn't a lot of kind of strategic leadership being delivered to that meeting. So there's a recommendation following from the Member Development Working Group. The council remove from the constitution the leadership team and property and major projects working group, and instead to establish the addition of what's been termed a senior leadership team to the constitution with the terms of reference set out in Appendix 1. So Appendix 1 on page 19 sets out a series of references, and about halfway down, the senior leadership team will cover the following functions: receive appropriate reports from officers, updates in relation to major projects, strategies and policy development, facilitate the operation of the council decision-making process, providing appropriate support and advice and guidance, consider proposals for new major projects to assist officers in determining the approach, oversee and review progress of the council's strategic plan and other significant strategies included but not limited to strategy set out in the council's policy framework, strategic plan, local plan, economic strategy and housing strategy, and receive updates affecting the council's annual budget, as well as the potential to oversee and consider forward plans. So the composition of that is made up of group leaders of the council and the senior management of the council, so providing that senior leadership and governance. The rest on there is around the kind of general administration on page 20. The bottom bit on page 20 then refers to what a major project you would imagine to entail. The significant costs or a significant service impact affecting multiple areas or large proportion of the district area. So Chair, just going back to the recommendations to remove major projects working group and leadership team and replace that with the senior leadership team as identified on Appendix 1.
Councillor Dart?
Yeah, thank you. So this smacks to me of an executive setup. And we aren't an executive council. We have our individual meetings, and they are meetings by which we make decisions and we vote. Now, the property and major projects working group and the leadership team was never supposed to be a body, either of those. They provided a steer. The difference between those two and this senior setup, although it says it won't have rights to determine what goes on within the council as a body on its own, why then has everyone got rights to vote within that body? You know, this essentially, why can't it come through the committee, that's the word I was looking for, committee structure, as it always has done? And I think you find the fact that leadership wasn't that well attended was after numerous asks to have it on Zoom, because it is a lot more accessible to all. And I'll just jump the gun one as well, Steve, if you don't mind, because it's in my brain and it can come out now. We actually don't get that good information fed down the line to us little people. So we could do with better communication. And I think if this comes to fruition in its entirety, we will end up with even less information coming our way. And there will be a lot of decisions that will be taken and we won't be aware of necessarily until it's too late. Thank you.
Chair, shall I just
Respond to that?
Yeah, so as you said, it's not a decision-making body, so it won't be replacing anything that CNR or any other committee do. It can make and give officers a steer for things within a major project. So as Adrian pointed out earlier, we have contingencies and things within major projects which sometimes need a political steer, and occasionally not all members around the table will agree. So sometimes you need to have a system of voting. So that's why the voting is in there. So it's not voting for anything different. It's only voting within a project or scheme. You mentioned about communication and information sharing. I know that's later on in the pack. So we've now introduced series of bi-monthly, whether we call them workshops, briefings, but members' diaries, so we have better interaction with members on a more frequent basis with a smaller number of items of perhaps a greater magnitude. So I think, last Thursday being an example, some key things, one of which was confidential, so I can't mention openly, but the others around our major projects at Appledore and the Operational Services Centre. And similarly, when we were talking about the housing strategy, having a better means of that interaction between members.
So, through the chair, so could we not use that, as that is now set up and in place? And we're all aware around the table of exactly the point of that group. Could we not use that group to bring forward issues that should come before the senior management team? Because then you would get a steer from all of us. And yes, it might not be straightforward for everyone to work around, but at the end of the day, everyone would know where we were and what was going on.
I guess the other part I probably should have mentioned previously, the intention is that group leaders feed information back through their groups on a regular basis from this, from the senior leadership team, and that could obviously work vice versa.
Mrs. Brenton, first of all.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, well, carry on from Councillor Gart's comments. I think the issue is really clarity here on the report, points C, the paragraph down about the Members Development Working Group. That's very ambivalent, really. It says that they consider that championing of the service area is a good thing, and that the role could be enhanced to embody the lead in the role. I don't really know what exactly that means, to embody the lead in the role. To champion something surely is to embody it in a psychological way. And it seems to imply that in a committee, the lead has precedence. It's some kind of hierarchy. There's the lead, there's the chair, and then there's the rest of us. So I think, that really turns on its head the idea of a committee with a chairperson. Because obviously chairs a committee, and I speak only of the one I know really well, which is External Overview and Scrutiny. The chair of that committee worked really hard, definitely championed that to the nth degree. And the idea that some lead person could take some kind of formal role that distracted from her position or the chair's position seems to me rather anomalous in this situation. I think that is not clear. It's, as I say, it's ambivalent. You can interpret it many different ways, and it really undermines the position of a chair of committee if they've got a lead who is also of possibly equal status or even more, just because they're the lead member, which implies at the moment that they have an interest in something. It doesn't necessarily imply that they're a champion, but if you put it into this thing that you embody the lead as some kind of champion, then it certainly gives us a much greater status of their role in a committee when they come to that committee to talk about, or we all talk about something, to discuss and then vote on something. So I must say, I take some of your points, Councillor Dart.
Yeah, sorry, they weren't very well made.
I've got three speakers, and I start with Councillor Newton.
Chair, thank you. Councillor Brendan, I think there's a little misunderstanding here. Perhaps it may be the way it's been written, as it's not actually crystal clear, as you. This concerns officer briefs that come to committee, whether it be a subcommittee or whether it be full council. And the criticism that has been made in the past, that it's all officer pull or officer push, etc., where lead members are purely making a summary at the end of a brief. This suggestion is that when a major brief is being submitted or presented to a committee, be it full council or a subcommittee, that the lead member, together with the relevant officer, deliver it together. So the lead member is there taking as a member, taking ownership for the subject and being fully supportive with the officer. And therefore then that was the purpose of this, to take the existing lead members, the existing functional lead members, nothing to do with group leaders, functional lead members, when something in their area is being presented, they would, because they've been thoroughly involved in putting the brief together anyhow, well, they should have been, they will then co-present it with the relevant officer. Thank you.
Cheryl? Oh, Councillor Collins, okay.
Thank you. I see that my name's down there as one of the group leaders, and I've really loved being group the Liberal Democrat group here. But since being elected to Devon County, I'm very pleased to hand over to Teresa Tinsley as group leader. I've seen the group of just me and Councillor Chris Bright, just the two of us, and now we have 10. We won 2 by-elections, so yes, really pleased to have led, but happy to hand over to Teresa, so that name will be changing on your group leader list.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to reassure Anna that, and I can only reassure you about my own small group. If I call them mine, they probably wouldn't even like that description, but honestly, it's a small Conservative group. And since I stepped in from Councillor Newton, I've gone back to my old ways, and some of you have been here for a long time, remember my old ways. I wrote a briefing note every week. I go to that particular meeting, and I haven't been to many, right? And when I finish, I've got lots of notes. I go home, I sit down, I write a briefing note. They all get it. That's the best I can do. There's no way I would not want to be anything but that.
Councillor Conhan?
Councillor Pennington just informed me that we haven't welcomed our new councillor. Councillor. Oh, you told me that she had.
I understand what you're saying there, but I do think that this is not sufficiently clear of what you've just extrapolated. Really, and it says it's about the member leading and they're going to give greater identity. I mean, it implies an authority and a status that obviously had some power in it, the big thing about power imbalances and that. And this really implies that the lead member has some kind of greater power than anybody else in a committee, even the chair, and that's anathema to me. So it needs to be reworded, I think.
I think we're
disagree with you entirely.
getting bogged down in the detail. Councillor Hobson?
I'd like to sort of reiterate the fact the role of a lead member is not about power. It is about sharing information with the rest of the members on an area that lead member is responsible for, working with the officers to deliver the objectives of the corporate strategy. So that's what I undertook to do with the delivery of the housing strategy. And as you know, I came to meetings, I presented, and that was my role, my responsibility, not about power, but my responsibility to share with you and to gain from you any suggestions for change. So that's my interpretation of the role of lead member. It's not to challenge the chair. The chair is there to ensure the meeting of that committee runs smoothly. Everybody gets the opportunity to contribute. They haven't got the power to say yes or no. The committee has that power. So it's not about power, it's about sharing that information. Well, that's what I did, and I think the roles of lead members for other areas of work can also reflect in the same way. So that is what we were trying to get across with the role of lead members, not about power, just about making sure that the bridge between officers and members is always open. It's a two-way dialogue. And that's why I think lead member roles, perhaps we need to explain it a little better. But I will point out that we've skipped into the next recommendation. We haven't dealt with recommendation 1 on page 9. And I think the lead member roles comes under recommendation 2.
Chair, there's no recommendation for lead members because the last sentence. Well, and reported back to full council, so we're having a rather premature debate.
I think I said, made a point, and I think we need to address that, which we were going to. So, but that is recommendation 2, not recommended.
Chair, I guess, can we, as councillor Hodgson mentioned, can we go back to the first item, which was the leadership team meeting, deal with that item? Sorry?
Vote individually on these?
Yes.
Councillor
Thank you, yeah. Thank you, as I agree with councillor Dart on this. When I read this, I wasn't happy at all. It smacks to me of cabinet by the back door. And I think I need email our leaders to that effect, that it's cabinet by the back door this. And if you look at its group leaders and senior members of the staff, and they will make decisions, but they'll recommend to either committees or full council their debate and what they decided. There was nothing wrong with leadership and major project working group. Only a lot of people didn't turn up, including group leaders. So, because I used to go to the town hall, and lead members very often weren't there, neither were all the group leaders, and they all should have been there. And because of that, this peer review team came in, this inspection team came in, critical friend or not, the inspection team, and have come up with these recommendations. I don't like this one at all, and I won't support it because it's wrong.
Chair, I respond to that. So the peer review team didn't come up with this recommendation. The recommendation on group leaders who met the member development working group. Whilst the peer review was struggling with the concept of leadership team and its seemingly strategic position in the council and its appearance to have significant decision-making powers, because of its appearance in the committee diagram, suggested that we consider looking at that. And this is what the member development working group has considered and has come back with a recommendation.
At least, Chair, with what we had, any member of the council could turn up to it. Any member could speak, and their choice whether it is or not. But under this, we won't have that one.
So I got councillor Tinsley and then councillor Dart, and I just remind you that, we've got a huge agenda to get through and we're only on for.
Yes, as I understand it, the briefings will still take place. Yes, so people can come and individually and get updates and put their views forward at those briefings. But I think in an organisation as complex as Torridge District Council is, not everybody can be involved in everything. I've had some experience of senior management myself, and I know this is a democratic organisation, but it seems to me that the proposal that we've got is about the political leaders understanding what's going on, having a private conversation, and cascading down to their groups, as Councillor Whitaker quite rightly said. So if there's a problem there, I think the problem is with the group leaders, not with the structure that we've got. And I fear that if we don't have this structure, then actually those discussions will take place somewhere else, and we'll actually have less democracy. So I would support the recommendation and propose that we support it.
Councillor Dart, and then I believe on this side we got councillor Hicks.
So, Steve, am I right in thinking, from what you just said a minute ago, that the people who put this idea together are the people who will sit on this group anyway?
Not Teresa.
Apart from Teresa, but everyone who put this idea together are the people that are going to sit on this group,
Not
which
so sure.
actually discounts probably an awful lot in this room. So actually, my point is made, because we don't agree with it, and yet, the minority do. I think it's not fit for purpose. I think we are, and the word I was looking for was cabinet. Thank you. But we are going down a slippery slope of cabinet rule. And I do not agree with that. And yes, Councillor Tinsley, it might be difficult to deal with, as I've heard them referred, a bunch of monkeys. But actually, that is democracy.
Councillor Hicks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To me, this is a dog's breakfast. But we're stuck with it, if you look at it logically. May I suggest we've got to run with it for 12 months, see that it doesn't work, and then reassess. And I suggest to you that the fun will be when this wonderful committee, leadership team, call it what you like, makes a recommendation to a committee, and the committee said no. And that's what's gonna happen.
So with that.
That's the democracy.
Good panicking, I believe, first, and then Councillor Conlon.
Very briefly, for the record, Chair, I was not leader in July 24. I only became leader of the non-aligned group, and I am concerned of some of the comments made by Councillor Leather and Councillor Dart, because it's unfair in one sense that I only have one other colleague in my group, and I'm 1/18 of the council, but I'm actually 1/6 of this committee. So there is a reverse view, and I'm talking myself out of a job, quite frankly. And I'm trying to get onto somewhere where I can do something on this council. But I don't see how this actually fits together, because it gives too much power to the smaller minority groups. And that concerns me a bit.
Councillor Conlon.
I was just going back to that cabinet reference. I don't think that's accurate, because that's usually the ruling, the leading party that sits on the cabinet, whereas this has got every single group included on it, so that's not really relevant.
Right, so it is where we are. Agenda, who proposed with it? Councillor Tinsley proposed it. Was your seconder? Councillor James seconded it. Okay, so as it's been discussed, 5.1, A and B, we don't need me to read them out because we did discuss it for 15 minutes. All in favour of the report as it's written, please show.
Sorry, what report? Sorry.
Well, the 5.1, the recommendation. A full council approves. A full council approves the removal of from the constitution, the leadership team and properly a major project working group, and replaces it with by addition with the senior leadership team to the constitution, the terms of reference as said in appendix 1.
Hands right up, please.
And against? Any abstentions?
It's 23 for, 9 against and 1 abstention. Chair.
Thank you. Mark's carried. Okay, moving on to 5.2.
So item B, which I believe we probably covered, which is the engagement and interaction with members. It was kind of voiced a number of times about information sharing and updates and workshops for members. But in the latter of 2024, well, as I said earlier, we introduced bi-monthly sessions, and they are all in members' diaries. Some of the recent examples outlined their housing strategy, budget and medium-term financial strategy, as well as regular updates on local government's reorganisation. On the top of page 10, I think we just covered the role of lead members and the fact that a draft protocol will be brought back to full council, reflecting some of the comments tonight and some of the discussions from the member development working group. So moving on to item D, halfway down page 10, governance and reporting framework. And this is where the peer team felt we could make some improvement and strengthen our governance, particularly in light of the very significant capital investment projects we have. Obviously, we've got the Appledore Innovation Centre, the Operational Services Centre, as well as £20 million worth of community regeneration partnership. So it felt that we needed to look at some of those, that governance framework, and attached was Appendix 2 on page 21 is a diagram which illustrates how that framework would look. So I'll start from the top down. So in terms of reporting and decision making, obviously you as full council and members, whether that's members of a committee or when you come together as this evening for a full council meeting, information is reported to you and decisions are taken. Equally, we have requirements to supply reporting information to the Ministry of Housing, Communities, Local Government, whether that's on our community regeneration partnership or whether it's on housing statistics or finances. So that's why they both sit up at the top of the reporting cycle there. So in terms of governance, we've just introduced the senior leadership team, which is group leaders and SMT. We've got a Torridge Place Board, which members will be aware of, is responsible for overseeing the community regeneration programme and partnership. Sat between those, we've got an officer programme board, which brings together the project managers for all of those significant projects, in order we can oversee and provide for them, as well as then reporting to either boards that sit either side and upwards to councillors. In terms of the detailed management, then you've got project managers assigned to major projects, working with multi-skilled project teams. And we've got external partners. So as you know, through our community regeneration partnership, and apologies, is still shown as Levelling Up partnership, we've got external partners delivering some of those projects. Below that, in terms of monitoring, so all of our programmes, projects need to be monitored for finances, risk, etc., etc. So our finance team, our legal services team, our support services teams provide that, as well as input from our external, our arm's length regeneration body, North Devon Plus. Sat at the bottom row, and that's the current major project. So we've got a housing delivery plan. We've got work to improve our leisure estate, operational services centre, Appledore Community Maritime Innovation Centre, and those regeneration partnerships, whether they're managed internally or externally. This was something that was also asked us MHCLG. In light of the significant projects we have, which they have funded. We've passed this on to MHCLG and they've seemingly happy with it, although we haven't had any specific comments. Chair, so that's the second recommendation for members to consider tonight, and that's adopting that reporting and governance framework.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Newton proposed,
Does it need proposing?
Yeah.
Yes, I
Very briefly, I look under finance, North Devon and legal services. And I apologise for not raising this earlier, which I should have done perhaps, but where does audit and scrutiny committees sit in the governance?
At the top. Torridge councillors, so
It's under that, is it?
so that includes all reporting to councillors at the table.
Monitoring projects then. But it says reporting. Or scrutiny. I'll take that and I'll second.
Okay, being proposed and seconded, all in favour of that report, Michelle? Any against? Abstentions?
It's 32 for and 1 against, Chair.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to 5.3 then.
Chair, item number E, first on the bottom of page 10, member training and development, especially following elections and by-elections. I think it's been commonly raised that specifically following our district elections, that very intense period of induction, training, information sharing, etc., is quite comprehensive and is difficult to manage for most members, let alone those members who may be working. So there have been some discussions around reviewing how induction should take place, and better streamlining that initial induction phase. So rather than it being all within the first couple of weeks, making it a little bit more timely. It's no recommendations this evening, but the working group will continue to look at that and bring something when necessary. Chair, so moving on halfway down page. Another item discussed through the peer review, brought up by members and just discussed and debated at the member development working group. And part of the main part of the discussion was around, as I said, planning call-ins and the procedure that enables ward members to exercise a call-in of planning applications, where they may have public representation or community representation, and where there perhaps isn't a need to give specific reasons for the call-in, especially planning reasons. I know there are conflicting views on this, but the recommendation is to allow ward members to call in planning applications whilst giving a reason, not necessarily a planning reason.
That's a lot first.
I think it's vital that when more members call in an application, that they do put planning matters down, because they know their patch better than anyone else, and they know their residents, and they communicate more with their residents. So if they can highlight what their residents' concerns are, say traffic or whatever, and then when the that is printed in the agenda, plans committee members can read what the residents are worried and concerned about and pick out and focus on those aspects. Whereas if there's no reason, they might think, well, what is all that about? So I think it is vital that ward members think of that considerations on their calling.
Thank you. Well, as somebody who's had many a tussle over callings, if I've got my county council, I must say that most councillors I know who do try to call something in, the residents complaining about something, do put reasons, and then they're faced with the obstacle towards, is it a planning reason or not? And that's what this overcomes, I hope. Because the fact of the matter is that not everything is actually subject to the planning regulations be discussed at the planning committee. The committee then feels that they're going to go one way or the other. It's another matter, but at least it should be discussed if their constituents are seriously worried about a particular planning application, because that, as Councillor Dart said, that is democracy, and that's what we're here to do, represent our constituents. The other thing is, and I don't see that this is a problem, unless somebody leaves it blank. If it leaves it blank, I understand your problem at the planning committee, because you can't, well, who knows what sort of imaginative thing you can put them there. But if somebody puts down a reason, you can discuss that reason and then come to a conclusion. Surely that is democracy. The other thing is, on the present planning form, and I hope this will be adjusted when this is taken into consideration, it actually says the only people to call in a planning to the planning committee are the planning committee members. but that's not in the constitution. The constitution says ward members can call in. And the constitution does not say it requires a planning reason. So it's not in our constitution at the moment, and I don't believe it's in this report about changing the constitution. So I just completely disagree with what you're saying, because you're saying you want to restrict the residents of this community, our Torridge voters, to just dancing like puppets to our tune. Well, I don't think that's right. I think we've got to accommodate people and actually to discuss something that's really seriously worrying people is not wrong, it's right.
Councillor Leather first, and then I've got Councillor Dodd.
I agree with Councillor Locke on this. We've always had to, all we can consider at Plans Committee are planning reasons on deciding whether to grant or refuse an application. We must look at the planning reasons for that decision. There can be exceptional circumstances that steer us away from a particular policy, either in favour or against. But there's no reason why a ward member can't put down the planning reason and bring in, asking for a call-in is because 20 of my residents are concerned about that roadway there or this entrance isn't. That's all they got to put down. Otherwise, if you just call it in for the sake of calling it in, we could be snowed on with a call without any proper reason.
I think that's a valid point.
It does work very well currently, and even with responses from the public, we accept them right up to the day of a planning committee meeting. So and anybody can attend the closed planning committee meetings, and they can watch online if they want to, but they can attend in person. So there's no restriction. Ward members can come, speak for a long time if they want to. Board members and being able to represent their constituents and their ward, there's nothing wrong with that, but there really should be a planning reason why something's bought.
Thank you. Well, I think I'm on the planning committee, and if I think back over the last 12 months, where there have been quite a few call-ins, on the call-in reason, there's never any specific policies that you have to quote, like, the actual, the plans, the terms that the planning officers use. It's usually just one sentence of why you want it called in. So it's a very, very basic reason for calling it in, I think. But Councillor Dodd.
Yeah, thank you. So the current constitution was set up in the way that it is in regard to this, because we had a meeting several years ago, probably now, and you had to call in and put a valid planning reason on the call-in sheet, which is fair enough. But there were odd occasions when actually that was prohibitive to calling an application in. So very occasionally, I've had experience of an application that was extremely contentious, but actually there wasn't really any valid planning reasons for it not going ahead. And that was why the constitution was changed. So yes, you definitely should put a reason, but to have it as a valid planning reason, that's not always the best policy, because sometimes you need to demonstrate to your residents, again, democracy at play, that they can actually have their voice heard in a committee situation so that everyone gets to express their opinions on things. So that's why it's set up, and that's how I think it should be.
Councillor Locke first, and then I'll bring.
Yeah, just going back to Councillor Bushby's point, I mean, a ward member needing put concrete policy ST07 or DN14, all you need put is concerned, residents have concerns over parking, overshadowing, things like that. You don't have to quote policies, but if you give the Plans Committee a clue what your residents' concerns are by just using those simple terms, that serves the committee well.
Councillor Hicks also.
I am nervous of the word planning in planning reason. We had one not too long ago in our ward where a child was killed. and there was an application for a house on an unusual site for unusual reasons. Now, if the planning word had been there, that couldn't have been called in. Because it wasn't a planning reason to call it in. But by God, your committee did not think about it, quite rightly too.
Yeah.
Councillor Hackett?
On a slightly different note, Chair. Yeah. When I sat on the plans committee, I had the ability to call in an application either way. Board members don't have that luxury, which means they have to make a decision, which is sometimes a very difficult thing to do. I will give an example. A village might not like a development that's coming forward, but they need the money from a 106 agreement to get a village hall built. That's the example. And sometimes you get an application you can't call in because of the very nature of that application. We can't call in draft views, and there was another type of application I couldn't call in recently either. So I would just like the ability, where appropriate, to have to call in either way.
Thank you. Councillor Tinsley?
Yes, I just wanted to give an example of something quite recently that I called in. Because I thought that the discussion ought to be held in public, really, that so that, as you were saying, councillor Dart, so that residents could hear going on, and it could be given a due airing. And I was about to go away. I didn't have time to look at the proposal in detail. I heard what the residents were saying, but I didn't have time to come to any particular view on it. So I just said, yeah, let's call it in, because we need to be able to have that discussion in public. It's a building. So I would welcome not having to be too limited by the idea that we have to put a planning reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nugent?
Thank you, Chair. I just caution people about offering residents, our parishioners, something that can't necessarily be delivered. And therefore you actually set them up for something or suggest to them that something that can't be delivered. The planning committee themselves are constrained to material planning considerations. And if they stray from material planning considerations, their decision could be unsafe, could be challengeable, and could be subject to judicial review. If we bring things and allow people to air things in front of the planning committee, who are there to, consider plans, which actually are out with the legal scope of the planning committee, then we're actually putting our residents up for a fall, because we're saying, oh, come on, we're talking. But then actually we know privately that the committee members can't rule on that, can't consider that. I think actually you're bluffing people.
Can I just come back on that, Chair? Because I'd just like to say that if we were diligent councillors, we would have advised our residents of that in the beginning. But irrelevant of that, it's still an entitlement for people to have their say.
And Chair, I'd like to come back on that as well. I think that's a complete calorie on our revenues, actually, because all the problems I've had, in the end, we've been able to cobble together a planning consideration because they were in there. That's right. But residents have a lot of other relevant concerns that they want aired, and they should be aired. We should do things in the line. We shouldn't hide things away. And the planning committee, part of their remit is to convince and be supporting and give confidence to our community that we're doing the right thing in terms of planning. And if it's all such a box on the table, they won't do that.
Either way, I can't see that there's any real harm in accepting this change, because at the end of the day, the planning committee will consider whatever is put before them and come to a decision one way or the other.
We're overthinking it a little bit. The reason we've gone down this road is purely so that when you call it in as a member, you don't have to know the specific planning policies, and that's what the aim of this is. In terms of planning, this says planning reasons, logically, if you call something in, it's because of the planning. It's not because you don't like the neighbour or anything like that. It has some logic to it, but it's to remove the fact that members have to dig for the different policy numbers and stuff like that. Because we went through a stage where that was required, and if you get it wrong, you end up getting it wrong. But I think how it's working at the moment, I'm not sure there's members, we actually have to say for or against even these things. We can just call it in. Either way,
We'll have to tick either refuse or accept and then.
Okay. Yeah. I thought that we discussed that. But okay, you just know the thing again, it's about policies of the.
That's the final word on this. Residents have the ability to write in to the case officer. And views will be heard, taken into consideration, even if it does not go to planning.
That's one on.
I was just going to say that the recommendation, if you change one word, instead of it saying that, it's or there, the final line required that there do not necessarily need to be policy reasons, rather than planning reasons, policy reasons. I'm done with that.
All kids have planning?
Yeah.
Well, that's basically what's, what it is.
Okay, that's the recommendation. Who's proposed that then? Councillor James? Seconded by? Councillor Bright, Chris Bright, all in favour, please show. Any against? Any abstentions?
32 for and 1 against.
Thank you. Hold on, Steve.
I'd share that's recommendation, that's recommendation 3 of 9. So next one, which notice a motion to full council. So the current notice motion procedure in the constitution is that notice motion can be submitted 5 days before the publication of the full council agenda. So that could be right up to the last minute on a Friday afternoon. And it was referenced that there've been instances where something at the full council been approved and that work has already subsequently been carried out. So the member development working group had a look at the process and recognised that there should possibly be an element of time in the process that allows, should members wish, a discussion with senior manager to talk about that notice of motion. Clearly the decision whether to withdraw it or not lies with the particular member. So the recommendation is to bring that time period forward. So the amendment is, or the recommendation is that full council approves an amendment to the constitution under section 851 that notices of motion be delivered to the chief executive by noon on Wednesday prior to the publication of the agenda for the next meeting of full council. So just putting in a time.
Thanks, Councillor. First of all,
Just briefly, just for clarity, is the agenda always published on a Friday?
It's published 5 clear working days. So if the meeting takes place on a Monday, like this evening's meeting does, it has to, by law, be published 5 clear working days, which then is the preceding Friday. Well, the Friday.
Simpler just to have 7 working days or 8 working days rather than saying the Wednesday the week prior.
yeah, and there's, notice the motions only go to full council anyway, so there's, there's that time. Did Councillor?
I think this makes perfect sense. What harm is there in a few days extra? It gives people time to consider and prepare, and I would like to support the recommendation.
I think in addition, it also gives members the opportunity to go in and speak to the relevant officer as well, and that is important. You need to do that. Okay, sorry.
Councillor Whitlock, seconded.
Yeah.
Well, you're seconding it, Councillor Whitlock.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been proposed and seconded. All in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Carry on, Steve.
Thanks. So halfway down page 12, Chair, item H, member budget working group, referenced obviously in terms of financial sustainability, the importance of that for the council. So we have currently a member budget working group in place, but that hasn't been particularly well attended of late. So the recommendation following consideration by the development working group, that budget working group should also consist of the group leaders and meet before the senior leadership team.
Councillor James, you're
Chair, I have been chair of the budget working group. We have struggled with numbers, to say the very least. And so I'm happy to follow this recommendation because it has been quite difficult. And my wife had to put £1 in the Well Park parking meter in Holsworthy. It kept rejecting the machine because it had gone up that day to £2. And Sean Carney actually announced it as a decision of the budget working with the chair. So my wife was quite impressed. So I'd like to share the blame.
Councillor Hames.
Yeah, just a technical point, it should read that full council approves the make-up of the budget working group.
It's a missing word.
Yeah, little word.
Okay, with that amendment, sorry, Councillor Dart.
So for clarity, does this group, this, whatever you call it, is that again, another decision-making group that is away from the rest of us?
The committee looks at the budget and make recommendations. Decision recommendations.
But what wasn't what you just said?
Recommendations over?
You just said that your wife said that the chair of the committee. Not just in time, please.
Don't go very down, Brendan. Any jokes? Being proposed, seconded by Councillor Olsen. Oh, sorry, Councillor Whittaker. All in favour, please show.
By magic.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Carry on, Steve.
Thanks, Chair. So last two items being relatively quick, and I feel the next one may be a little bit slower. So the bottom two paragraphs on page 12, in reference to scrutiny committees. So it's obviously being recognised in addition to some poor member attendance workshops, a number of committee meetings had been cancelled because of being incoherent. So part of the review the working group looked at was whether amalgamating the internal and external scrutiny committees would be a measure of not having so many committee meetings that members have to attend, as well as that element where members of scrutiny committees can't substitute for community resources, etc. So the recommendation coming forward is that full council approves the move to a single scrutiny committee system that will fulfil the roles and responsibilities currently shared between the internal and external scrutiny committees and the Constitution, and terms of action will be amended accordingly.
Councillor Leather, first, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Chair. This is something I've been advocating for a long time. When the overview and scrutiny first came in, and some of the members who've been on a long time, we have one overview and scrutiny committee. And I chaired that one at the outset, and it worked very well. And we've always known between internal and external, there's often an overlap. And that would, you know, get rid of that. But one overview and scrutiny committee is all we need. And I'd move that recommendation any day. And I think that's what we ought to do.
Councillor Hodgson?
Just to show we are democratic, I'm afraid I cannot agree with you, Councillor Leather. I think it is necessary in the growing agenda that we've got with the projects and the people and partnerships we are working on here, that we actually pay due deference to all our partners at external scrutiny, so we can call in and look at what's happening in their worlds and how they are contributing to our agenda. Internal scrutiny, things, I would say, our budgets have changed. The amount of scrutiny we do at internal with regard to our QBRs and monitoring the priorities of the council. I think the two, on occasion, and I do agree with Councillor Leather on this, that the paths merge. And at that point in time, the two chairs of those committees agree to have a joint session to examine an issue. But I think we need, especially with the money we are spending that has been allocated to us, we need to be able to monitor that, and we need to see how those partners and stakeholders are working. So I am afraid I cannot support this recommendation, and I would propose a counter that we retain the two committees.
Councillor Tinsley?
Just a question, that if the two committees were amalgamated, would we not need a larger number of members sitting on that committee, given that the increase in workload?
Need more briefing.
Yeah, and
Chair, thank you. A, as the outgoing chair of one of those committees the last few years, and secondly, as the lead member for this area, you've seen my comments. I hope at the end you'll see and note that I do not support this measure, and I endorse entirely what Councillor Hodgson has said there. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we spend taxpayers' money. We deal with taxpayers' money, and therefore the bar of accountability and scrutiny is higher than if it was business money or if it was our private money. There is a higher level of accountability and reckoning. And it is essential, I think, first of all, that on the financial side, we scrutinise properly. We have developed, we have written a quarterly business review system, which has been acknowledged by the visiting peer review team and is being used as a best practice example by other councils elsewhere. People have actually asked us for a copy of the one that we do. We designed that ourselves, and it works well. We are supported by two very good on the internal side. To help us with that, we have two very good independent members who are here tonight, who bothered to turn out to actually listen to us, Steve Dengate and Ian Harper, and their input is invaluable. And that is all about scrutiny and questioning and everything else. Separately, I'm frightfully sorry, but if enough people don't turn up to your committee and it becomes inchoate, that is a function of the chair and leadership. And nothing more than that. It is absolutely basic. And likewise, the subject of your committee, well, when I was a member of external under Phil Pennington, we used to concentrate on external organisations that used to spend or be in receipt of our taxpayer money. And we would then closely look to see whether we, the taxpayer, were getting value for money for the money we were giving to that external organisation. I fear that we've lost our way of it, and we tend to look more at softer subjects that we are interested in, rather than actually the hard matter of having surety and then being able to say to people out there that we are spending their money wisely, and by gum, we have a process in place which actually backs it up. So I believe there is, and there will be, as Councillor Tinsley has mentioned, if you amalgamate the two committees, you will need more councillors anyhow. The number of meetings will have to be more frequent. I would strongly recommend, and I completely disagree with Councillor Leather on this one, I would strongly recommend that you maintain two committees. Right, it's more work, but if necessary, you then improve the quality of the act on those committees rather than just use that as an excuse to bin.
Thank you. Next to Mrs. Brenton first.
Thank you. Well, I must say, occasionally I do agree with you, Councillor. What do you think?
Make a habit of it.
Actually, I do think there is a great point in what he said. As far as external scrutiny is concerned, we've had a wide range under our chair of organisations that we've met, some of whom, or most of whom, we have been providing with grants or subsidies of some kind or other, but not all. And this is where I feel, you know, the cost of everything, but the value, I won't say nothing, but not everything, because we've also been to the private services and various other things like government subsidies. And we've actually managed to achieve quite a bit in terms of getting better stocks and better timetables and various things like that. That's just one instance. We're still trying to drag the post. But then, you know, ITV will have to get a bill about it. But anyway, but seriously, so there is a great virtue in external and the chair has made a great deal of effort to bring in public health issues and things like that, that obviously not only being affected by us, but directly affect our constituents. So I actually think that external, it has a value, a great value. I don't think it should be discontinued. And I think that really the two are complementary, but they're not exactly identical. And I think it's an identity.
Thank you. Mr. Leather?
Well, just to say that everything that Councillor Newton said, yeah, I agree with. It's fine. The quarterly reviews are very good and well designed and are easy to read and follow. That will continue with one committee. But we've also seen when in court overview and scrutiny happened, people travelling from a distance to come and speak, and there's not enough committee members there to make up. It's not just a chairman's responsibility, that, because the chair probably thinks that everybody will be there and they just don't turn up. One committee with a larger membership, I agree to have a larger membership would work. And instead of scratching around looking to make up the agenda looking forward, you'd have a proper agenda with internal or external or where the other that. And it worked, and it did work. I think the only reason it ever got separated into two was to give other councillors something to sit on. And that's absolutely why it was split. And it did work very well as one committee. And I thought it was far more effective than the current system.
Thank you. Councillor Pennington.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little bit upset because it's not only scrutiny that's been in court occasionally. I think audit and governance has been in court, and there's been auditors that have travelled all the way from Bristol on a lot of money, and we as councillors have not turned up or found substitutes. And everybody is responsible to find a substitute if they do not attend. And we have a responsibility with taxpayers' money. I dread to think how much money has been spent on the wayside of people who have not turned up. Secondly, external. A lot of things going on at the moment. Petrop, for instance, has got a consultation going out about the future of higher education. It should have come before our external committee for us to make a response, but what have we done? Nothing. The hospital, we used to have North Devon District Hospital, but we are now part of Plymouth and Exeter. And we are now getting further and further remote from every situation. And somehow in scrutiny, we do not ask the right questions. And I'm really frustrated that we are not working with external partners. And interestingly, when you work with external partners, you ask them, what would you like from Torridge? And they say, we want housing so we can have doctors, we can have nurses, we can have people that come to work for us. And it's a two-way dialogue that if we do away with external, we will lose a vital component. And secondly, I want to congratulate Councillor Newton on the QBRs, because I always enjoy every quarter the QBRs that come out. And I'm one of the few councillors that always put questions in. But now I've fortunately got on to CNR. Now, when I joined the council first time in that 2007, they said, you're not very experienced, go on to scrutiny. That's where you started. And I loved scrutiny, actually. It's if you can get in and ask questions, and people say to me, you argue yourself, don't you, Philip? I probably do, actually. That's the way, it's the way I live my life. I have a good conversation at night. But if we don't have good scrutiny, we will be like Matt Hancock and Jeremy Hunt during the COVID crisis. You got people who just examine each other and know that one made mistakes before and they don't want to uncover the other's mistakes. We need good scrutiny and we need good external and internal scrutiny, because if we do that well, and it's for us councillors to make sure that we get substitutes, and it's not the issue about should we do a scrutiny. I cannot vote for this. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah,
You want to speak on that? Yeah. One second.
I find myself agreeing with Councillor Pennington and Councillor Brenton. When I first started the council, I was put on internal scrutiny under Pete Watson. And he said, you will learn about this council by doing that. And you do. It gives you the ability to deep dive into what's going on with this council. However, I managed to get away with doing it, I don't know, because I also chaired audit and governance, and that's not permissible under the constitution. But nonetheless, I'll make a serious point. The ability to deep dive external organisations is vital for the council. And what worries me, if we have one scrutiny committee, you will have the standing items of the QBR, and that will squeeze out the ability to spend a lot of time really getting beneath the surface. You'll have the 3-hour rule come in and everybody want to go home. So please do not change something that ain't broken. The fact that you don't believe things are going on the agenda, that has got to be up to the members and the chairman of that committee. And we need to hold them to account to make sure they do bring those people in. Thank you, Chair.
Go on then, Cheryl.
So I wasn't planning to stand, I was stepping down as chair of external anyway, but I am a little bit upset and disappointed that it seems to be a bit of a bashing of the chair of external, because I think we've done a lot of great work. We've lobbied for the link centres, we've held joint meetings on dentistry and agriculture with North Devon Council, and we've had quite a few public speakers come in and speak at external. So I feel like we've been developing it in the last few years. So I think it's been a little unfair what I've been hearing this evening, actually. But yeah, I'm not sure if I've got, well, I do agree. I think we should be able to have that time to bring in external partners. And I think that might be even more important going forward with a unitary as well. So I think I would support the keeping of external scrutiny.
Thank you. In reply, I just make myself clear, that was not a bashing of you as committee chairman. It's probably a bashing of all of us, not bringing the things forward to that chair. We all have joint responsibility here. Thank you.
Councillor Leather proposed, did anyone second Councillor Leather's proposal? They didn't? No. Yeah.
Actually, I guess you don't have to go to the vote,
Well-
because the recommendation is to make the change.
Exactly.
If there's
So-
no support for the change, then it doesn't necessarily need to go to the vote.
That motion is lost, Mark. Right, the next one is.
Members communications channel halfway down page 13, there's no recommendation for this. There were mixed views on communications and needs a reference around the electronic communications that go out to members. For some, the newer members, they used to go out just on a Friday with a combination of everything that happened in the week. Obviously more recently, they go out and when that piece of information is received or needs to be distributed. So I guess for in the instance of a road closure, for example, it would be much good to hear that on Friday if the road closure is taking place on Monday. Resolved to continue with the status quo on that one, so there's no recommendation. The next one is around what's described the policy framework in the constitution, and that covers a very small number of those main strategic policy documents for council which are now outdated. So the recommendation is to update those documents that would comprise the strategic plan, the Torridge and North Devon joint local plan, the North Devon and Torridge economic strategy, and the housing strategy. Mr. Chair, that's the recommendation.
Councillor James, straightforward enough, I recommend it.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been proposed and seconded, all in favour, please show.
That's 31 for, and then one abstention, because councillor Hodson's not in the room.
Okay, so moving on, page 14, item I, schedule of committee meetings. So as members will be aware, the schedule of committee meetings is published and put in a report to full council on an annual basis in the autumn before the following year. It's been the case that then committee chairs are able to make a change either to the date, time of that committee meeting, which the working group didn't feel was probably fair constitutionally, a single member being able to overturn or override a decision that was made by all members at full council. So the recommendation is that to stop that happening and cancel of a meeting, change, so committee meetings of the council will take place in accordance with the programme decided at autumn meeting of full council. Cancellation of a meeting or additional extraordinary meeting may be called as and when appropriate as agreed by the proper officer and the chair of that committee. And in the event an exceptional needs to reschedule a scheduled full council and or committee meeting, senior leadership teams delegated the authority to approve such a request, which will be made by the committee chair and proper officer.
Councillor Dodd?
Again,
Here it is.
it takes a decision. I'll rest my case.
Councillor James?
Yeah. I can't do the.
You're speechless.
I'm happy to recommend it, but I would say, you know, if people plan their meetings in advance, and please, can we not? And that is really, really important, and I would suggest that you might need a little bit more of a backup than just the committee chair and the proper officer. I'm not sure what that is, but, you know, people work. They look ahead, sometimes take time off, and then discover the meeting's cancelled. That is not acceptable. So I think we need to be quite more stringent on why we cancel them. I can understand bringing in extraordinary meetings, if necessary. And I would like to see, we plan ahead, we got a year's programme, and then we get meetings cancelled. Needs to be a bit more serious. I'll move it anyway.
Seconded by? 1 second. Yeah. That's arranged. Okay, all in favour, please show. Against? And abstentions?
It's 28 for, 3 against and 2 abstentions, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Final one from me before I sit down. It's around deputy group leaders. Obviously, the report was written subject to the implementation of the senior leadership team, where that arrangement allows substitutes at that meeting from deputy group leaders. So the recommendation is that each of the political group leaders nominate a deputy group leader who will be able to substitute for them at levels of meeting.
Straightforward. Seconded by. Yeah, Councillor Hackett seconded. All in favour, please show. Your legs are ringing out. Thank you.
Again.
And against? And against? Abstentions? Okay, moving on.
Chair, sorry, can I just check one vote, please?
That's fine.
Councillor Keane.
All in favour, please show.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so that's 32 for, 1 abstention, Chair.
Item 10, size of committees and terms of reference, pages 22 to 44. The order.
Yeah, hopefully this won't be as long or complicated as the previous report, and actually far easier in terms of the vote to keep both internal and external. So members need to agree the size of committees and the terms of reference. There's no change proposed unless members want to change it, of course. And the terms of reference are on pages 24 to 44 of your agenda.
Chair, I propose now Britain.
Okay, don't know if there's any speakers been proposed by Councillor Simon Newton and Councillor Locke seconded. All in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Okay, item 11, the seats of political groups, pages 45 to 46.
So it does say on the agenda that this is to be tabled at the meeting as the final numbers have yet to be confirmed. As I understand it, they're still yet to be confirmed and group leaders are still in discussion. So I'm going to ask that this be delegated to group leaders to decide.
Seems the right thing, I think. Yeah. I'll propose that from the chair. All in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. 12, membership committees, pages 47 to 50.
Again, as the previous report hasn't been confirmed as yet, I'm going to ask for the membership of committees to be delegated to group leaders to be agreed post this meeting also.
Proposed, Chair.
Yeah, seconded, Chair.
All in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Item 13, election of chairs and vice chairs.
Yeah.
Mr. Brendan?
I propose that this too goes to the group leaders. We did it before, we had a group leaders meeting to decide who would be best chairing the various committees, and I think we should do it again. Don't see any problem with that. More democratic. over the resolution. Oh, yes, we did. First, oh, confirm, right?
Excuse me, we're not- Okay, seems like it's gonna be decided here tonight then.
Wait a minute, I posted it, who leaders me, who leaders, I've made that proposition, that proposal rather
Did I
than
use-
just say that. Now, I know it, I mean, you can see how the vote you went tonight, you know, I know this is a conservative independent coalition. Let's be honest about that, that's what was happening here for quite a while actually, but it definitely showed itself clearly this evening. So, you know, let's get rid of the pretense that this is a no overall control council. Because that's why it should go to group leaders, if it's no overall control council, but it isn't. You can see that by the membership of committees, well, not committees, but certainly in terms of the roles of important roles in this council and where they go. So that is why I propose that happens.
Okay, well, you've proposed that and it's been seconded, so. Mr. Tinsley, you want to speak on it?
Yes, I would say that I think there does need to be more discussion behind the scenes about how we, before we bring some proposals to full council. So I would support. You don't want that. Too many.
Yeah.
Awkward discussions in public.
Chief Executive.
Yeah.
Chair, the problem we have obviously needs to be approved by full council. It's on the annual meeting of full council to be approved. If members deferred making decisions, we won't be able to hold any committee meetings until all those discussions have been had, a conclusion reached, and another meeting called. So basically, we will stop holding committee meetings.
Chair. If that's a logical reason, but never mind. You could continue with the existing chairs on these committees until we settle this particular issue. No problem with that whatsoever. You can, as a temporary measure, they can continue with it. It's deferred, in other words. We defer decisions all the time, no problem.
The Constitution does state that you will need to elect the chair, the vice chair of committees at the AGM, at the annual meeting. So the only way to change that would have been to change the Constitution before tonight.
Or you
And
can
we're gonna be,
suspend,
we're gonna be at a standstill and not be able to make any decision. We don't have these decisions made tonight. We do have a CNR committee coming up. That agenda's got to be published on Thursday.
Chair. We can suspend standing orders this evening. Correct?
The standing orders is only relevant to certain parts of the Constitution. It's not relevant to this. We can't just suspend them, the whole of the Constitution. So no, it's not relevant. There's very little, we don't actually have standing orders, and there's very little that we can suspend within our Constitution, and it's usually regarding the talking of motions. Give me some time, I'll just check that quickly, but we have been here before.
What's another?
Well, just to say, there's been weeks leading up to this annual general meeting when these discussions could have been held by councillor Brent. And in all the years I've been involved, I've never known AGM not to appoint chairs and vice chairs of committee.
Yeah.
It's never happened.
Right.
I don't know what the reason is that councillor Brent has brought this forward, but there's absolutely no need for it.
Excuse me, Chair, but I asked for a group leaders meeting from Councillor James end of last week, and he said, I said about the chair thing, and he said it'll be as before. And that's what you told me, because it was the meeting we had, wasn't it, the meeting we had last week? The end of last week, wasn't it? Working group, yeah.
We need to get on
There
with
was
this.
no, I mean, I find it very frustrating actually that people don't really understand how democracy should work,
Well,
even if it doesn't, but, you know, if it's already been stitched up by you guys, just say to them, give us a slate, you'll go over it, you're right.
Let's see democracy in action. You proposed, and it was seconded.
Well, solicitor said it's not possible. He claims it's not possible. Well, if it's not possible, we can't vote on it.
So just to clarify the point on suspending council procedure rules, we can only do it for rule A10, which is proposing to change the constitution, rule A12 on voting, and rule A13.2, which is the requirement to sign for the minutes, and rule A5 motions may be suspended by a motion on notice or without notice of at least one half of the whole number of members of the council present. So that's the only ones that we can actually suspend within our constitution. So it's very limited remit, and suspending for chairs and vice chairs, we're not able to do that tonight.
Okay, right. So election of chairs and vice chairs. So we've got CNR chair that has to be decided. Councillor Locke?
I'd like to propose, councillor Hitt, he brings great knowledge and experience to the committee and the chair, I would like to bring it forward.
Seconded by Councillor James has seconded, but you want to speak on it or second it?
I'd like to propose councillor Teresa Tinsley. I think she's got a great eye for detail and a lot of passion for getting the best out of the area, and I think she'd make a great chair of seal.
I'd like to second.
Okay, we'll take Councillor Hicks has been proposed a second. We'll take that one first of all in favour of Councillor Hicks, please show. And against? Abstentions?
Chair wish to respond to Councillor Tinsley.
Oh, yeah, do make it one. Right, proposed seconded, Councillor Tinsley.
Thank you, Chair. That's 18 for councillor Hicks and 15 for councillor Tibbs.
Thank you. CNR vice chair. Councillor Tinsley, sorry.
I'd like to propose councillor Tinsley to vice chair, please, can I get a second?
Second.
You second, Councillor John.
Can you confirm your second? Pass it off. Councillor Hicks.
Councillor Hepburn. That's somebody. Okay. Councillor Tibbs before the vice chair of CNR, proposed and seconded. Show of hands, please.
Come on.
James. Okay, and now, Councillor Dart.
Thank you, Chair. That's 19 councillor Tinsley and 14 for councillor Dot.
Gary. Okay, moving on to audit chair. Thanks, Councillor.
I propose councillor Hackett.
The second.
Any other nominations? Okay, all support Councillor Hackett for chairholder.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair of Audit? Councillor Haggart?
No.
Being accused of being a bit of eccentric, I'm going to go with councillor David Brenton.
No. No.
Oh, you haven't refused to get the nomination.
I've got, a lot of stuff
Well,
on.
who else have we got for, Vice Chair of Audit? We've got to have someone. Councillor H?
Councillor Mrs. Gov.
Councillor Mrs. Gove? I'll second that from the chair. Okay, all in favour of Mrs. Gove, Councillor Gove? Vice Chair? Thank you.
Unanimous, Chair.
Moving on to plans, Chair.
Yeah. I propose councillor Locke as chair of plans, is of huge knowledge and does it very well indeed, and again, stability.
Any other nominations, all in support of Councillor Locke, please? Any against? Abstentions?
It's 31, 4 and 2 abstentions.
Thank you. Vice Chair of Plans Subcommittee.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Chris Leather. He's been great support and he always brings lots of knowledge to the committee meeting.
Certainly does. I'll second that for the chair. Any other nominations? So all in support of Vice Chair, Councillor Leather. Abstentions? Sorry, against rather? And abstentions?
31, 4 and 2 abstentions, Chair.
Licensing Chair? Councillor Harding?
Yeah, I'd like to propose Stephen Gibson, because he's been on those subcommittees with me, he's very good, brings a lot to the meeting, and I've been on licensing for a while, and I think he'd be a good one.
Okay. Councillor Conlon?
I'd like to propose councillor Chris Bright, please. Yeah, I'll second that.
Chris Pine. Councillor Gibson seconded, was it? Councillor Gibson didn't have a second of that, so.
I'll second that.
You can second that. Let's do the first thing. The other one. Councillor Bright has been proposed and seconded, the chair of licensing. Please show all in favour. Against? Oh, sorry, Councillor Gibson, then. Been proposed and seconded.
Chair, can you just ask if there's anyone saying from the vote completely, please? So we've got 1 abstention, 25 councillor Bright and 7 councillor Gibson.
Yeah. To license and vice chair. Harding?
Again, I'll nominate Steve Gibson and the reason we gave it for.
Councillor Bright?
I'd like to propose councillor Inch.
Second.
Second, Chair. 3 seconds. Okay, so,
Sorry, is anyone who seconded councillor Gibson?
I've been proposed and seconded by, for Councillor Inch to be vice chair. Seconded first. All in favour of Councillor Inch, please, Cheryl? Against?
councillor Gibbs.
Oh, sorry, second.
Oh. Is it not?
Any against him? Yeah, so I was gonna against for Simon Inch. I didn't do against or abstentions. So against. No, I'm not putting hand up.
The abstention.
Any abstentions then?
We don't.
Well, what have you announced?
No, 27.
So. Now, all those that didn't vote for Councillor Simon Inch. Against is.
Against really, but then.
That's, yeah, okay, so that's 27 for councillor Inch, 6 against.
Yeah.
Internal scrutiny chair.
Sure. Right. Nominate councillor Claire Hodgson, who has been a very able deputy for this last year. And of course, with her knowledge of fiction, turned gamekeeper background, she brings a lot of experience to the role anyway.
Seconded by.
I'm happy to second.
Councillor Withers seconded it. Any other nominations? No. Okay, we'll go to the vote then for internal scrutiny chair.
Unanimous, Chair.
Internal scrutiny vice chair.
I'd like to propose councillor Steve Harding. Because I've worked on committees with him, he's always well prepared for meetings. And I welcome his contributions to internal scrutiny because it's going to be a big agenda. I think we're going to have a lot to do, and I'm following in the footsteps of someone who was extremely thorough and very powerful in his presentations and talks. So I shall need all the support, I think, all of you. Thank you.
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Okay, all in support of
Stephen Harding.
Councillor Harding. Please, show.
Very good.
I'm back to seven.
Any against? Any abstentions?
The Johns, which way are you voting? Abstain. 32 for, 1 abstention.
Thank you. External scrutiny chair. Councillor Tinsley.
Yeah, I'd like to propose councillor Thomas.
Second that, Chair.
Been seconded. All the nominations, okay, so councillor Thomas has been proposed. External scrutiny chair, all in support, please.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. And external scrutiny vice chair. Thomas.
Can I nominate councillor Mrs Brenton, please, to be vice chair?
Okay, it's been proposed a second for Mrs Brenton, who's vice chair of that committee. Please show and support.
Yeah, unanimous now, Chair.
So if you didn't put your hand up, it wouldn't have been unanimous.
Almost 30 million as deputy of project loans injury, but am I fit to do that? Because senior officers on this council have made a load of false accusations against me, which include wasting council resources, lack of integrity, lack of leadership. And to put all these in writing, I've taken legal advice and they're libelous and defamation of my character. So am I fit to do this job? Well, I feel I am because they're not true, they're all false. But is this council going to put up with a senior officer stating those remarks about somebody else, a councillor, and having it no redress.
Councillor Branton, is this really the time and place to have this discussion?
I don't think.
Well,
There's nothing.
I don't think it's appropriate to be doing that on YouTube.
I think it's highly inappropriate to mention this now when an officer cannot reply. It's completely inappropriate and it's not what the council would like to see.
Let's bring, I know nothing about this, I don't know who the officer is, so.
Well, I am gonna come back on that, councillor Annie Brenton, because you named a senior officer of this council and that she's female, so it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious. Well, there's only one female senior officer on the senior management team here.
I didn't say.
I am within my rights to submit a complaint, and I have submitted that complaint to the proper authorities. I have asked for that complaint to proceed. And you've asked for that to be put on hold. So until that time comes when members can consider that complaint and it can go in front of a standards committee, then I would ask that you refrain from making any comments, otherwise I will answer back.
Thank you,
Well, Chair, I know that's these are all lies, they're absolutely.
Say earlier, let's start this discussion at another time.
Chair, sorry, it wasn't unanimous. Can you just?
Yeah.
Against an abstention, wasn't it?
It was an abstention or against?
On again. Yes, it's 32 for on one again.
Right. We should have done this. Standards share now, Dalton.
I'd like to propose Louis Bark, a man who is well measured in his decision making, thoughtful and very, very thorough.
And I'm going to second that from Jim. Okay, councillor Back for proposed share standards. All in favour, please show.
Sorry.
There you go.
Hands up. Any against? Abstentions?
Thank you, Chair. It's 32 for on one abstention.
That's one. Vice Chair of Standards Committee.
I propose Ken James, councillor Ken James, chair.
Okay, it's been proposed and seconded, councillor James. It's the Vice Chair of Standards. In favour, please show. Any against?
Thank you, Chair. It's 31 for and 2 again.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 14, scheme of delegations, page 51 to 80, new agenda pattern.
Keep this very brief, Chair. Scheme of delegation, no proposed changes. Happy to take questions. It's on page 53 to 80 of your agenda.
There's no
changes at all, Chair.
Okay, I'll move, are you, purple? I'll second that from the chair. All in favour, please show.
Thank you, Chair. It's 32 for and one abstention. Councillor Brenton's
Thank you. 15, substitution scheme, pages 81 to 83.
So very briefly, again, we need to agree the substitution scheme is within our constitution. I will just highlight a couple of points within the substitution scheme because it has been raised during the course of the year. But if you're a member of CNR, you can't substitute on either of the overview and scrutiny committees. Reason being is that overview and scrutiny, both committees have the power to call in decisions that are made at CNR. And that's why we've said also, if you're on overview and scrutiny or vice versa, you can't contribute because you're then potentially calling in a decision that you've contributed on and influenced. So that's the reason. And again, audit and governance can't substitute on overview and scrutiny committee either for the same reasons. And when it comes to, I know this has been mentioned earlier, but when it comes to arranging substitutions, if you can't attend any committee meeting, you either need to arrange a substitute yourself or ask your group leader to do so on your behalf. Other than that, there is no changes at all to the substitution scheme.
We've heard that, and that substitution is vitally important, as we've heard. You cannot have meetings being called, particularly when we've got visitors from outside traveling long distance and meetings not called. So, thank you. And proposed and seconded, all in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Item 16. Jason.
So this is for full council to approve membership of outside bodies. Again, I'm recommending that this be delegated to group leaders to decide who goes on which outside body. And we're also not sure if we've got all the bodies listed. So if there's a committee or an outside working group that you sit on, if you can let Dem Services know so that we can ensure that that's added to the list and discussed with group leaders.
Yeah.
Councillor Haynes.
Seems to recall last year I said, why isn't Torn Torridge Forum on the list? So I hope it can be put on this year because it's very useful gathering of people from representing all sorts of groups in Torridge and North Devon.
Okay, that's been proposed.
You have a second?
Suggestion to be delegated.
Yeah, so you, Councillor James proposed it, Councillor Brandon, seconded, all in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to item 17, it's 88 to 90, so the lead number of.
Thanks, Chair. Another requirement of council's constitution at full council approve the lead members at each of the annual general meetings. So the lead member positions are set out on page 88, and the current current councillors occupy those lead member roles is highlighted on page 90.
Councillor Hodgson.
I'm happy to recommend this, subject to reviewing the role and the role profile of lead members as agreed in an earlier decision. So I'm happy to propose this with those amendments. Okay.
Okay. The show of hands in support of them. Thank you.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to item 18, appointment of members to active board, pages 92 to 94. Again.
Okay, Chair, so again, responsibility of full council to appoint the councillors to boards, bodies and boards. In August 2021, the council has approved the establishment of the active Torridge board. It's made up of 4 councillors, the leader, Councillor James, lead member for leisure and recreation, you just approved, remains Councillor Piper, chair Resources, which is Councillor Hicks, plus one other member to be nominated by full. And that role is currently held by Councillor Cottle Hankin.
Mr. James?
So, I'm not sure whether Cheryl wants to, sorry, don't want to continue, I'm quite happy. Roles you know, if you want to. For that, I don't know if we have to start that now, or.
Councillor Cottle Hunkin, are you willing to remain on that, in that role?
Yeah, I'm happy to continue.
Thank you.
That is on.
Okay, it's been proposed and seconded.
Who's seconded it, Chair, sorry?
Councillor, yeah. All in favour, please show.
Again. Against.
Against? Any abstentions?
32 for one abstention.
Okay, item 19, appointment of members to working groups. Working group is 953.
Chair, so the final report and two working groups for members to consider, or full council consider the appointment of members to, so it's the Climate Change Working Group and the Harbour Board. So the recommendations are 4 members to the Climate Change Working Group as highlighted, and 4 members to the Harbour Board as highlighted in the appendices. So on page 100 and 103.
Councillor Haynes first had his hand up.
Proposed, Chair.
Councillor Locke.
I want to just ask, we do have a working group of the excellent, and that's not mentioned.
It was approved at a recent council meeting, and I guess it's for a short term for that project rather than harbour and climate, which are long term working group. That's essentially why they're not in bill.
So what do you think be that? Make up of those working groups. You proposing it, Councillor James?
Councillor Haynes.
Oh, Councillor Haynes proposed it. Yeah. Okay, it's been proposed and seconded. All in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Item 20 petitions, you'll be delighted to know we have none. Items 21 and 22, scrutiny of the public, we haven't got any part of it.